seems, very quickly. And during the course of it, we celebrated various Paschal services. Paschal Divine Liturgy on Monday, Paschal Vespers Wednesday, Paschal Vespers again on Friday. Other parishes do Paschal liturgies on different days and different services. It's a wonderful week. It's a very wonderful week. We're often very tired, and it's hard to come to those services sometimes. And certainly even the Paschal character of those services is not like Passion Week. It's not like Pascha itself, and we often realize that our energy flags during Bright Week. But at the end of Bright Week, when Bright Week is completed, and it was completed last night when we came in to serve Vespers, and we solemnly closed all these doors, the royal gates that I'm standing in right now, and also the so-called deacons' doors, the north and south doors to the altar. Those are all wide open during Bright Week because there's no barrier between the kingdom of heaven and our experience of that kingdom in this church. All the barriers are taken down. And so the church prescribes that all these doors be left open, beginning with Paschal Matins on the Great Vigil. And so they were open all week long, and then we closed them to remind ourselves that we're transitioning now back to a more normal measure of time. More normal measure of time. For instance, we did not commemorate any saints during Passion Week and Bright Week. All attention was on Christ and his Pascha, his Passover, his death and resurrection from the dead. All attention was on Christ, and so we just eliminate even the saints themselves. Even the saints themselves are just put aside during those 2 weeks. But now we return to them. Today we commemorate Thomas. We commemorate Thomas today, who came on the 1 week kind of after Pascha itself, after the resurrection. We just heard about it in John's Gospel, chapter 20. Thomas wasn't there at Pascha. He wasn't there. He was absent. Never good to be absent when the church is assembled, especially for the celebration of the resurrection. You might miss something. Heard one priest put it that way. You just might miss something. Don't want to be absent for any assembly of the church, and especially on the Lord's Day. But Thomas wasn't there, and he's told that Jesus is risen. And he says, I doubt that. Doubting Thomas he's sometimes called, Doubting Thomas. This actually is called not Doubting Thomas Sunday. It's called the Sunday of Thomas touching the side of Christ, or the Sunday of Thomas's faith is actually what the Orthodox tradition of calling this Sunday is. But Thomas doubted. He doubted. He said, I doubt that. Unless I can physically have this kind of like empirical evidence in front of me that Christ is risen from the dead, I will not believe. And those words, I will not believe, are actually the words with which the gospel on Pascha itself last Sunday afternoon ends. It ends with the same reading we heard today, but it ends earlier than the reading we heard today. The reading we heard today goes further. It ends with, I will not believe. And then on the next Sunday, measured by that name, Thomas comes and Jesus appears. He says, peace be to you, right? Because that's what Jesus does when he appears. He says, peace be to you. Whenever he appears in his resurrection, he says, peace be to you. That's what Jesus does. He brings his peace, the peace of heaven, into this world to give to the members of his body, and shares that peace with us. And so, brothers and sisters, today we celebrate and commemorate that event when Thomas, having doubted 1 week earlier, now comes and he's in that upper room. He's in that upper room that we're actually in right now as well. This is the upper room that we assemble in for the Divine Liturgy. When we celebrate the Eucharistic Liturgy, we're in that upper room with Christ and his disciples, just like the icon on that eastern wall proclaims to us when we receive Holy Communion. We're in the upper room of Pentecost. We're in the upper room of the Mystical Supper. We're in that upper room where they all assemble and Thomas believes. Thomas believes. This, brothers and sisters, is what we call AntiPascha. That's the term for this Sunday. The Sunday after Pascha is called AntiPascha. And what that means is not against Pascha. Sometimes we think anti means against, but in Greek anti also means instead of. And what this is that this is the first commemoration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ after the event itself. And from this point forward, every single Sunday of the year ahead of us, until we celebrate the Pascha of our Lord again, next Pascha, every single Sunday will celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so we call it AntiPascha, the Pascha instead of Pascha, the after Pascha, and the first Sunday, or Lord's Day, for the sequence of Sundays in the year ahead. We continuously, on this day, this first day of the week, celebrate the resurrection as Orthodox Christians. We always have. John's revelation in the scriptures itself from the first century says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, and that Lord's Day is understood to be Sunday, what we call Sunday in the English language, which most European languages call the Day of the Lord, right? Kyriaki in Greek, Dominicus in Latin, Domingo, I think, in Spanish, Dimanche, you can hear it, Dem, right there, Lord, right? You can hear it in the Latin root for Lord. You can hear the word Lord's Day there in almost every language. English is almost exceptional, not the only one. But most languages that were, used by people who converted to Christianity and entered Christendom over the course of 2,000 years were transformed by the faith in the resurrection. And the Lord's Day was the day that used to celebrate the resurrection of Christ. The Russians call it Voskresenia, which means Day of the Resurrection. They're the only language on earth that does that, goes that far. Usually it's just Lord's Day or some version of that. Nedelia, I think in Ukrainian, but with the Russian it's Day of the Resurrection. I always like to think, and I think you've heard me reflect on this before, when the godless communists tried to transform the culture of Soviet Russia after the revolution and tried to eradicate Christianity from Russia, especially the Orthodox faith from Russia, and they tried very hard, very, very hard to do this. They were up against it because the very language of the 7-day week said Day of the Resurrection, Day of the Resurrection. I think you've heard me tell the anecdote about this debate between a state-supported atheist and some kind of country bumpkin-like village priest who kind of like had no education at all, and this campaign is underway to confront the peasants and make all the peasants lose their faith in Jesus Christ. And so these really educated intellectuals come from the cities and universities and institutes, and they're atheists, and they come as part of what was called the League of Militant Atheists. There was actually such a league. The League of Militant Atheists was formed. It had like over 1 million members in it in the 1920s during this first phase of de-Christianization. And they would sponsor debates in village parishes. And so the atheists would come from the city, with a stack full of like evidence, like later this would be expressed by what the story is. I don't think it ever really happened, but when they go to the space, I've been in space and we didn't see God up there, and so God must not exist, that kind of shallow atheism. He'd come with a big stack of so-called evidence against Christianity. And he debated this poor priest, like the priest didn't basically know what to say. And he's like, for an hour, he goes on and on and on. You've heard me say this before, I think many of you. The atheist goes on, he browbeats all the peasants from the parishioners, and there is no God and all that kind of stuff. There is no God. And then, and after he's all done, he says to the Batushka, the priest, he says, okay, go for it, prove me wrong. And the priest says, oh, okay, that's easy to do. And he stands up. He's probably like this old man in a cassock and a gray beard. And he looks out at the people and he says, Christ is risen. And everyone says, indeed he is risen. And he looks at the atheist and says, see, you didn't have any effect whatsoever. God exists because he animated us with the joy of the resurrection. The joy of the resurrection. So every Lord's Day, brothers and sisters, every Lord's Day throughout the year, beginning on this day, we commemorate what happened last Sunday, last Lord's Day. Last Sunday. The first day of the week, we're told. We heard it in today's gospel. We heard it in all the readings of the resurrection. Very early in the morning, the myrrh-bearing women came to the tomb on the first day of the week before dawn, and they found it empty. And the angel told, go and proclaim this to the apostles. We've got their icon right over there, and we're going to have them commemorated in the center of the church soon enough with the celebration of myrrh-bearing women next Sunday, the myrrh-bearing women. The apostles to the apostles, the ones sent by Christ through his angel to the apostles who are the ones sent, as we heard today. As the Lord sends me, so I send you. You see, it's all about communicating this joy, brothers and sisters, beginning on this day. And so the church calls this day the new day, the AntiPascha, the new day. All of last week was actually one day. You might have felt like it was 7, but actually the church commemorates the whole of Bright Week as a single unit, as one day, without the setting of the sun almost, as it were, that we just keep on in Paschal mode. All the services were more or less the same. Same hymnography much of the time. Same order of the services, same beginning, same ending, dismissal. It's all the same from Pascha through Bright Saturday. Those of you who went down and were with the bishop, our bishop in Holy Resurrection Church in Tacoma, saw this yesterday as well, down in Tacoma at the Divine Liturgy. It's like one day. And then all of these gates and doors get closed, and then we step into the AntiPascha, the instead of Pascha, the next Sunday, the first day of the week, which the church, of course, as we know, is called the 8th day. The 8th day, right? Well, this is the first day of the week, but it's also the 8th day of the week. Of course, there can be no 8th day of the week. The week in this age has 7 days. 7 days only. 7th day is a day of rest. All the other days are days of activity, and then there's the day of rest. Jesus rested on that great and holy Saturday. That was the great Sabbath, right? The blessed Sabbath that we sang about not yesterday, but a week before yesterday. The blessed Sabbath on which day Christ rests from his works, we sing at that service. And then comes the new day, the first day of the week, but in the church now, we have newness. We don't just step into the first day of the week and begin the cycle again anew. Of course we do that. We live in this world. We have the time of this world. We will be commemorating day after day for the year ahead. But beginning on this AntiPascha, this instead of Pascha, we take a step into the kingdom of heaven. We experience, and every Sunday, every Lord's Day for the year ahead of us will be an experience of the kingdom of heaven, an experience of the resurrection and the newness of life into which we have been baptized. We have 52, it turned out. Don't know where I got my measuring wrong. We had actually 52 people received into this church at Pascha. We all thought it was 50, but then I looked at my notes and did some checking, and nope, we actually received through baptism or just chrismation 52 people. They are all new members. They've entered into this newness of life, which the Paschal hymns do such a marvelous job of communicating to us. Think of all those Paschal hymns we've been singing, the Paschal canon, and all the other Paschal services, about a newness in time, about a renewal of everything, For instance, think about Paul's second epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 17. In 2 Corinthians 5:17, Paul says, anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. The old things have passed away, and all has been made new. You see, newness, oldness, newness, oldness. Now we're renewed. We have a new life. We have a new identity through our baptisms. We are given a divinity itself through our baptisms and through communion in the church. This, brothers and sisters, makes us new. And so today we celebrate that newness. We celebrate the defeat of all of that darkness that pervades this world, can even pervade the world during Bright Week, can even pervade the world during Pascha itself. can pervade the world and always will pervade this world, all that darkness has been defeated. It has been defeated, brothers and sisters. And we are new, and we live in that newness. We live in that newness that God has given to us. Let me read to you a sermon from about 1,000 years ago. Actually, it's 900 years ago, but it sounds more impressive for me to say 1,000 years ago. It's from about 1150 in Russia. Now think about 1150 in Russia. That's just about, that's like when Russia's still converting from paganism. There was the 988 event in the Dnieper River when Vladimir organized the mass baptisms. We know something about mass baptisms at St. Elizabeth Orthodox Church now. Mass baptisms, he organized that in 988, but it took a long time for the Rus, the Russians, to convert to Christianity. And it was something that took hundreds of years, not thousands, but hundreds of years for it to play out. So about a century and a half, let's say about a century after this beginning of the conversion, there's a bishop in Turov in Russia. His name was Cyril or Kirill. And he was really widely loved. He beautiful. They call him the Russian Chrysostom, the Russian Zlatoust, the Russian Chrysostom, because he spoke so beautifully. And it's really striking, isn't it, that this land that even barely had its own, written language. It had a language, obviously, but not written down very much. Like that, receiving Christianity suddenly becomes a kind of an increasing cultural powerhouse, with Christianity at the core of that power. And so this is Cyril of Turov's sermon on AntiPascha, on Thomas Sunday, as we often call it. Thomas Sunday. This is Cyril of Turov talking about the newness. And just see the natural imagery here. The whole earth is somehow transformed. Even the animals are jumping around, the lambs and the calves and the shepherds, and everyone's so joyful. It's just a really beautiful image that he puts forward. And he writes this: last week, that would be on Pascha itself, there was a change of all things, for the earth was opened up by heaven, having been purified from its satanic impurities. All creation was renewed. Today, Thomas Sunday, the newborn lambs and calves frisk and leap about joyfully, and returning to their mothers gambol about, so that the shepherds playing on their reeds praise Christ in joy. Today there is a feast of regeneration, made new by the resurrection of Christ, and all new things are brought to God. That's just like a quick, that's not his whole sermon. It's not his whole sermon, but it's just like an excerpt from that. It's a really beautiful sermon, and it really shows us the sense of newness. We can think about those pagans converting and what a difference Christianity brought to their lives. We could talk elsewhere about all the virtues of Christianity and how transformative it is for pagandom, for a pagan culture that's locked into the darkness of paganism. But this is what was going on. And so, brothers and sisters, we participate 900 years after Cyril of Turov wrote this homily and gave it. We participate today, every year on this day, in that newness. And we sing hymns about that newness, about how time, which is of this world, its 7-day cycle, now is no longer all that we experience, but we experience heavenly time as well. That's what that term 8th day means. It means heavenly time. The kairos that comes into the chronos. The kairos, the time that's where God's present, transforms the time of this world, which just goes in cycles of death, really. Just continuously being depleted and cycling through death. So what we have today, brothers and sisters, is buoyed up by all that beautiful hymnography. So let's remember those hymns in the Paschal season ahead. Let's remember, especially at Vespers, when we sing the Paschal Apostolica, as we'll do throughout the Paschal season. We did it all last week. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered. Let those who hate him flee from before his face. That's, of course, just a psalm verse, but there's another psalm verse that follows that is sung by the choir. This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Brothers and sisters, this is that day. This is the Lord's day. This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Let us cast aside all the darkness that overwhelms us so often and embrace heavenly beauty. Think about the hymns that go into those Paschal Apostolika at Saturday evening Vespers. Think about the hymn, for instance, let us call brothers even those who hate us. What? Wait, did we just sing that? Let us call brothers even those that hate us? No, wait a second. Sorry, we don't do that, do we? We don't love those who hate us. We hate those who hate us. That's this world. That's the 7-day cycle of this world. But we, brothers and sisters, are in the 8th day. We no longer belong to this world. We belong to the kingdom of heaven, in which our brothers are even those who hate us. Even those who hate us. Let us forgive all by the resurrection, is the next verse there in that hymn. Come Saturday evenings, you're going to be hearing all of this throughout Pascha. Let us forgive all because of and due to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which brings to me and to all of us, this call to be forgiving, to forgive, to forgive. Let us remember also those beautiful hymns that we integrate into our Sunday Lord's Day worship. For instance, at this liturgy and every Sunday liturgy, you may hear the priest say out loud a series of hymns after communion. All the people have received communion, and the priest has taken the chalice back into the altar, into that symbol of the Garden of Eden, right? He's taken that back in, and as he puts all the particles that commemorate all of you, all of the baptized Orthodox Christians in the parish, and he puts all those particles into the chalice, he says those beautiful hymns there and prayers. And one of them is, O great and holiest Pascha, O wisdom and word and power of God, grant us to worship thee in the day without evening of thy kingdom. That's what he says. It's from the 9th ode of the Paschal Canon. And by the way, we'll be singing the Paschal Canon when we do the Resurrectional Vigil during Pascha on Saturday evenings. O great and holiest Pascha, wisdom and word and power of God, grant us truly to partake of thee in the day without evening of thy kingdom. You see, brothers and sisters, what that hymn is telling us is we have entered into a day without evening. Oh yeah, there's of course, that sun's going to set eventually, and the cycle that keeps on going on, right? But Revelation chapter 21, I think it is, says that in the new order, in the heavenly Jerusalem, there's neither sun nor moon, but everyone is illuminated by what? By whom? By Jesus Christ. Illumination just becomes nonstop and ever greater and greater in paradise. That's the day without evening of God's kingdom, brothers and sisters. And today on AntiPascha, on this 8th day of creation, or recreation of the creation, we enter into that day without evening of God's kingdom. As we approach the Holy Communion, let us remember that we are approaching the kingdom of heaven. We are approaching the source for our renewal, as Paul puts it in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17, that we are being made new, and the old things are passing away as this newness fills us with its presence. Amen. Amen. Let us all say with all our